The dust on Valna 7 never settled. It hung in the air like a bronze mist, catching the light of the system's twin suns and turning everything the color of old blood. Tae-young had learned to live with it over the past 6 months. He'd learned to live with a lot of things since the colonial fleet had sent him here as part of the peacekeeping force. He stood at the edge of the neutral zone, checking his medical kit for the 3rd time that morning. The ceremony would begin in an hour, and his job was simple: stay alert, stay ready, and hope nobody needed a combat medic today. The peace talks between humans and the Itharians had been going well. Too well, according to some of the other soldiers. That's what worried Tae-young most. The Itharians had arrived at dawn. Their ships descended like silver tears from the sky, silent and graceful in a way that human vessels could never match. Tae-young watched them land, studying the aliens he'd only seen from a distance before. They were tall, taller than any human, with skin that shimmered between blue and violet depending on the light. Their eyes were large and dark like pools of ink, and when they moved, they seemed to flow rather than walk. Among them was Princess Lyra. Even Tae-young, who knew almost nothing about Itharian royalty, could tell she was important. She wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, and the other Itharians kept a respectful distance from her. But what struck him most was her expression. While the other aliens maintained neutral, diplomatic faces, she looked around with open curiosity. She stared at the human buildings, at the soldiers, at everything with the wonder of someone seeing a new world for the first time. Their eyes met for just a moment. She smiled, a gesture that translated perfectly across species. Tae-young nodded back, then returned to checking his kit. Friendship between species was good for politics. It wasn't his job. The ceremony began with speeches. The human governor spoke about cooperation and shared futures. The Itharian ambassador responded with words about harmony and mutual respect. Translators worked overtime, turning alien sounds into human language and back again. Tae-young stood with the other medical personnel, far from the main platform but close enough to respond if needed. Princess Lyra sat in the front row of the Itharian delegation. She listened to every word, leaning forward with an intensity that the others didn't share. Tae-young found himself watching her more than he watched the speakers. There was something different about her, something that reminded him why they were all here. Peace wasn't just a political word. It was a real thing built by people who actually believed in it. That's when he saw the device. It was small, barely larger than his fist, tucked under the platform where the speakers stood. A small red light blinked on its surface, steady as a heartbeat. Tae-young's blood went cold. He'd seen enough improvised explosives in his career to recognize one instantly. The blast radius would catch everyone on and near the platform. Dozens would die. The peace talks would die with them. He didn't think. Thinking took time, and there was no time. His body moved before his mind caught up, running toward the platform. Someone shouted behind him. Security personnel turned, hands moving to weapons, not understanding what they were seeing. A human soldier running at full speed toward the diplomatic delegation looked like an attack. Princess Lyra saw him coming. Her eyes went wide, and she started to rise from her seat. Tae-young vaulted over the barrier separating the audience from the platform. His boots hit the floor hard, and he could see the device now. See the timer counting down. 3 seconds, maybe 4, not enough time to disable it. Not enough time to throw it clear. Only enough time for one thing. He grabbed Princess Lyra around the waist and twisted, putting his body between her and the bomb. She gasped, alien words spilling from her mouth, confusion and fear mixing in her dark eyes. Tae-young pulled her down, covering her completely with his own body. He felt her heart racing against his chest, fast and frightened. The world exploded. The blast hit him like a giant fist, tearing through his back and into his organs. He felt his ribs crack, felt something vital rupture inside his chest. The pain was enormous, bigger than anything he'd ever imagined. It filled every part of him until there was nothing else. When the ringing in his ears faded enough to hear, he realized Princess Lyra was screaming. Not in pain, he thought dimly, in horror. He was lying on top of her still, and he could feel warm blood soaking through his uniform. His blood, too much of it. Hands pulled at him, trying to move him, but his body wouldn't cooperate. Someone was shouting for a medic. Funny, he thought. I am the medic. Other hands, gentler, touched his face. He managed to open his eyes and found himself looking up at Princess Lyra. She was covered in his blood, but otherwise unhurt. Good. That was good. She was crying, he realized. Tears ran down her alien face and she was speaking rapidly in her own language. He didn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear. She was begging him to hold on, to stay alive, promising that help was coming. Tae-yang knew better. He'd seen too many wounds like this. He had minutes at most. He tried to speak, but blood filled his mouth. He coughed, spraying red across the princess's silver robes. She didn't flinch away. He tried again, forcing the words past the blood and pain. "Worth it," he managed to whisper. "Some things, worth dying for." He saw her face twist with grief and anger, saw her shake her head violently. She pressed her hands against his chest, trying to stop the bleeding, but there was too much damage. He was broken inside in too many places. The world was getting darker, narrower, like he was falling down a long tunnel. The princess's face stayed at the center of it, the last thing he could see clearly. She was still talking to him, but he couldn't hear the words anymore. Everything was fading, sound and light and sensation all draining away into darkness. His last thought was simple and clear. He'd saved her. Whatever else happened now, whatever came next for the humans and Itharians, at least he'd saved her. That had to count for something. Then the darkness took him, and Tae-yang died in the arms of an alien princess on a dusty world far from home. The throne world of Ithera was nothing like the dusty frontier planet where Tae-yang had died. Crystal spires rose from living stone, reaching toward a sky that shimmered with colors no human eye had names for. Rivers of liquid light flowed through the city, powering technologies that looked like magic to anyone who didn't understand the science behind them. Princess Lyra walked through the royal palace with slow, heavy steps. She'd barely spoken since returning home 3 days ago. Behind her, 2 attendants carried a stasis pod. Inside, perfectly preserved, lay the body of the human who had died for her. The throne room doors opened without sound. Queen Velnara sat waiting, ancient and terrible and beautiful all at once. She'd ruled the Itharian Empire for 3 centuries, and every year showed in her eyes. Those eyes turned to her daughter now, then to the stasis pod. "So," the queen said, her voice like wind through crystal, "this is the human who saved you." Lyra bowed deeply, the formal gesture of a daughter to her queen, not the casual affection of a child to her mother. "Yes, your majesty." His name was Tae-yang. He was a healer with their military forces. He saw the explosive device and threw himself over me without hesitation. Queen Velnara descended from her throne, her robes flowing around her like water. She approached the stasis pod and looked at the dead human inside. He looked small, she thought, fragile. These creatures lived such brief lives, burned so quickly through their short years, and this one had spent his last moments saving someone he didn't even know. "A life debt," the queen said quietly. "He died protecting you. Under our law, this creates an obligation." "I know," Lyra's voice cracked. "The debt passes to his bloodline. His family will be owed a debt of honor for generations. I've already had our diplomats search for his relatives. He has a sister on Earth, a scientist." The queen was silent for a long moment, studying the dead human's face. Then she turned to her high arbiter, Kyle, who stood in the shadows at the edge of the throne room. "Kyle, summon the Royal Biotechnological Institute, all of them. I don't care what they're working on. They answer to me now." The high arbiter's eyes widened. "Your Majesty, surely you don't mean—" "I mean exactly what you think I mean." Queen Velnara turned back to the stasis pod. "I will not accept this debt passing to his bloodline. I will not have my daughter bound by obligation to people who had nothing to do with this sacrifice. The debt is to him, to Tae-yang, so I will pay it to him. But he's dead," Lyra whispered. "Then I will bring him back." The words fell into the throne room like stones into still water. Kale stepped forward, his expression troubled. "My queen, the resurrection technology has never been used on an alien species. The risk of failure is enormous. The cost in resources, I don't care about the cost." Queen Velnara's voice cut through the air like a blade. "This human died for my daughter, for my family. Honor demands I try to restore what was lost. If we fail, we fail. But I will not let it be said that the Itharian Empire values its own children more than those who die protecting them." Regardless of species, she turned to her daughter. And for a moment the queen's mask slipped. Lyra saw her mother, not the ruler. "He saved you. I saw the recordings. He could have run away. He could have tried to disable the device. Instead, he covered you with his own body and took the full force of the blast. That kind of courage deserves more than a memorial and an apology to his family. Lyra felt tears on her face again. She'd cried more in the past 3 days than in her entire life. What if it doesn't work? What if we damage him further? Destroy whatever exists beyond death? Then we will have tried. The Queen placed a hand on the stasis pod. Her long fingers spread across the transparent surface. And that will have to be enough. On Earth, Dr. Hana was in her lab when the message arrived. She was studying genetic markers in deep-sea creatures, trying to understand how they survived in impossible conditions. The work usually absorbed her completely, but not today. Today, she could barely focus on anything. Her brother was dead. Taeyang, who'd always been the brave one, the one who ran toward danger while everyone else ran away. She'd gotten the official notification 2 days ago. Killed in action during a terrorist attack on Valna 7. Died saving an alien princess. They said he was a hero. They said his sacrifice had prevented the peace talks from collapsing. None of that made him less dead. The communication device on her desk chimed, displaying an unknown sender with a priority flag. Hana almost ignored it, but something made her open the message. The holographic display activated and an alien face appeared. Hytharian, she recognized immediately. The translator kicked in a moment later. Dr. Hana, my name is High Arbiter Kael. I serve Queen Velnara of the Hytharian Empire. I'm contacting you about your brother. Hana's throat tightened. If this is about his body, I already told your diplomats we want him returned to Earth for burial. This is not about burial. Kael's expression was difficult to read, but Hana thought she detected something like disbelief in his voice. The Queen has ordered that your brother be restored to life using our biotechnology. We need your expertise in human biology to maximize the chances of success. Will you come to Ethera? The words didn't make sense. Hana stared at the hologram, waiting for it to resolve into something comprehensible. I'm sorry, what? Your brother died protecting Princess Lyra. This created a life debt under our law. The Queen refuses to accept this debt passing to your bloodline. She intends to resurrect Taeyang and pay the debt directly to him. Hana's mind raced. That's not possible. He's been dead for 3 days. Brain death occurs minutes after the heart stops. Even if you could restart his body, he'd be gone. Just an empty shell. Our technology is more advanced than you know. Kael's voice was patient. We can recover neural patterns from the quantum imprint left at the moment of death. We can rebuild damaged tissue at the cellular level. It has been done before, though never with an alien species. The Queen has committed every resource necessary to attempt this, but we need to understand human biology better. We need your help. Hana sat down slowly, her legs suddenly unsteady. This was insane. Resurrection was fantasy, not science. Every species that had ever studied death came to the same conclusion. It was final. Irreversible. And yet, what are the chances? She asked. If I help, if I provide everything I know about human physiology, what are the actual chances this works? Kael was quiet for a moment. Honestly? Perhaps 1 in 10. Perhaps less. But the Queen has ordered it done. The question is whether you will help us improve those odds. 1 in 10. Probably less. But more than 0. More than the absolute certainty of never seeing her brother again. I'll come, Hana said. Tell me what you need. The Royal Biotechnological Institute looked more like a temple than a laboratory. Organic architecture merged with crystalline technology, creating spaces that felt alive. Dr. Hana walked through corridors that pulsed with soft light, following researcher Bin, the Itharian scientist assigned to lead the resurrection project. You understand this has never been attempted on a human, Bin said, not for the first time. His tone suggested he thought it shouldn't be attempted now either. The biological differences are significant. Human neural chemistry is far more primitive than ours. The electrical patterns are different. Even if we succeed in restarting his body, there's no guarantee his mind will return intact. I understand the risks. Hana had been on Ithera for 5 days now. 5 days of explaining human biology to aliens who found it simultaneously fascinating and crude. But we're going to try anyway. They entered the main laboratory and Hana's breath caught. In the center of the vast space, surrounded by technology she couldn't begin to understand, lay her brother's body. He looked peaceful, like he was sleeping. But she could see the damage through the transparent covering. The explosive had torn through his back, destroying organs and shattering bones. How? she asked simply. How do you fix that? Cellular regeneration. Bin moved to a control panel, his long fingers dancing across interfaces that responded to his touch. We map every cell in his body, identify the damage, and rebuild from the molecular level up. Organs, bone, tissue, all reconstructed. That's the easy part. The easy part, Hana repeated faintly. The difficult part is the mind. Bin pulled up a display showing something that looked like a star map. But Hana realized it was neural patterns. When your brother died, his final moments left a quantum imprint. Every thought, every memory, every connection in his brain existed in a specific state at the moment of death. We can read that imprint, we can map it, but transferring it back into a reconstructed brain... He made a gesture that seemed to mean uncertainty. That's where we enter unknown territory. Princess Lyra entered the laboratory and Hana noticed how Bin immediately bowed. The princess had visited every day, watching the preparations with an expression that mixed hope and guilt. Dr. Hana, Lyra said quietly. How are you holding up? I'm scared, Hana admitted. Scared it won't work. Scared of what it means if it does. My brother died. I mourned him. Now you're telling me he might come back, but he might not be the same person. I don't know which outcome terrifies me more. Lyra nodded slowly. I understand. I've been having the same thoughts. He died saving me. If we bring him back and he's different, damaged by this process, will he hate me for it? Would it be kinder to let him rest? The Queen doesn't think so. My mother is many things, but she's bound by honor above all else. Lyra looked at Tae Yang's body. She believes every life has value, regardless of species. She believes his sacrifice deserves this chance. The procedure took 3 weeks. Hana watched as Itharian technology rebuilt her brother from the inside out. Damaged organs were regenerated cell by cell. Shattered bones were reconstructed with a precision that human medicine couldn't match. Every day, Taeyang looked a little more whole, a little less like someone who'd been torn apart by an explosion. But he remained dead. His heart didn't beat. His lungs didn't breathe. He was a perfect reconstruction of a corpse, waiting for the spark that would make him alive again. On the final day, the laboratory filled with observers. Queen Velnara herself attended, along with her advisors and the highest-ranking scientists in the Empire. The human colonial fleet had sent representatives too, though Hana noticed they looked more suspicious than hopeful. Commander Yi Jun stood among them, Tai Yang's former commanding officer. He'd arrived 2 days ago and immediately demanded that the experiment be stopped. The Queen had refused. Now he watched with hard eyes, his hand resting on his sidearm as if he expected a threat to emerge at any moment. Bin made final adjustments to the equipment. We're ready. The neural imprint will be transferred first, mapping his consciousness back into the reconstructed brain. Then we'll restart his autonomic functions, heart, lungs, basic neural activity. After that, he looked at Hana. After that, we wait and hope. Do it, Queen Velnara commanded. The machines came alive with light and sound. Energy flowed through systems Hana couldn't identify, following pathways she couldn't trace. On the monitors, she saw patterns emerge, neural pathways lighting up like stars being born. Taeyang's brain, inactive for nearly a month, began to show activity. His heart beat, once, twice, then settled into a steady rhythm. His lungs expanded, taking in air for the first time since he died. The monitors showed all systems functioning, all readings within acceptable ranges for a human male. But he didn't wake up. Minutes passed, then an hour. The excitement in the room slowly drained away, replaced by disappointment and resignation. Bin checked and rechecked his instruments, but nothing changed. Taeyang's body lived, but consciousness didn't return. I'm sorry, Bin said finally. The neural patterns transferred, but they're not integrating. It's like the information is there, but his mind can't access it. He's alive, but he's not aware. He won't wake up. Hana felt something break inside her chest. They'd been so close. For 3 weeks, she'd let herself hope, let herself imagine her brother coming back. Now that hope crumbled into dust. Princess Lyra made a sound like a sob and moved toward the table where Taeyang lay. She placed her hand on his, her alien fingers curling around his human ones. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, we tried. We failed you. And then Taeyang's eyes opened. They were different, His natural brown was still there, but threads of violet ran through the irises, a side effect of the resurrection technology. But they were aware. They were alive. They looked around the laboratory with confusion and growing panic. Where? His voice was rough, unused. Where am I? The laboratory erupted in chaos. Scientists rushed forward with instruments. Commander Yijun shouted questions in Korean. Queen Velnara remained perfectly still, watching with ancient eyes. But Hana pushed through all of them, reaching her brother's side. She grabbed his other hand, the one Princess Lyra wasn't holding, and squeezed hard. You're alive. You're on Ithera. You died and they brought you back. Taeyang stared at her, then at the princess, then at his own body. His free hand rose to touch his chest, feeling for damage that was no longer there. I remember dying, he said slowly. I remember the explosion, the pain. I remember... His eyes found Princess Lyra. You. I covered you. Did it work? Are you alive? Because of you, Lyra said, tears streaming down her face. You saved me. Good. Taeyang closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them again, Hana saw something that worried her. He looked lost, disconnected, like someone trying to remember a dream. Why did you bring me back? It was Queen Velnara who answered, stepping forward with the authority of someone who ruled star systems. Because I could not accept the debt your sacrifice created. You died with honor. You deserve to live with honor as well. Taeyang sat up slowly, and Hana noticed how smoothly he moved. The resurrection had done more than repair him. He seemed stronger somehow, more coordinated. Different. I need to go home, Taeyang said. I need to see Earth. He looked at his hands again, turning them over like they belonged to someone else. I need to understand what I am now. The news of Taeyang's resurrection spread across human space like wildfire. Within days, his face was on every screen, his story told and retold until it barely resembled the truth. Some called him a miracle. Others called him an abomination. Taeyang sat in a guest room in the Itherian palace, watching the human news feeds with growing unease. He barely recognized himself in the stories they told. They made him sound like either a saint or a monster with nothing in between. You should stop watching those, Dr. Hana said from the doorway. She'd been staying on Ithera with him, helping him adjust to whatever he'd become. They're just trying to sell fear. They're scared, Taeyang said. I'm scared. Look at me, Hana. He held up his hand, focusing his attention on it. His skin took on a faint violet shimmer just for a moment before returning to normal. I heal faster than I should. I'm stronger. I can feel things I couldn't feel before. When Princess Lyra is nearby, I can sense her emotions. That's not human. That's not what I was. You're alive. That's what matters, is it? Taeyang turned away from the screens. The colonial fleet wants me to come home for examination. They say it nicely, but I can read between the lines. They think the Itherians put something in me, made me into a spy or a weapon, and maybe they're right to worry. There was a knock at the door. Princess Lyra entered, looking troubled. Ambassador Dal has arrived from Earth. He's demanding to speak with you. My mother has agreed to allow it, but she wants me to be present. The meeting took place in a neutral conference room. Ambassador Dal was a thin man with hard eyes and a harder smile. He looked at Taeyang like someone examining a specimen under a microscope. Mr. Taeyang, he began, deliberately leaving off any rank or title. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I'm here representing the interests of Earth and the colonial government. I know who you are, Taeyang said. What do you want? I want to understand what was done to you. The Itherians claim they simply restored your life, but our scientists have reviewed the data they provided. You're not the same person who died on Valna 7. They've altered you at a fundamental level, integrated their biotechnology into your body. We need to know why. To save his life, Princess Lyra said sharply. My mother used every resource at her disposal to honor the sacrifice he made, or to create an asset. Ambassador Dal smiled, and it was not a kind expression. You must forgive my skepticism, Princess, but my government finds it convenient that you chose to resurrect a colonial fleet soldier, someone with military training and knowledge of our operations. You could have honored his memory in other ways. Instead, you've created something that's no longer fully human. Taeyang felt anger rise in his chest, hot and sudden. I'm sitting right here. Talk to me, not about me. Very well. Dal turned his attention fully to Taeyang. Will you return to Earth? Submit to examination by our medical experts? Help us understand what you've become? And if I refuse? Then you confirm what many already suspect. That you're no longer loyal to humanity. That whatever the Itharians did to you changed more than just your body. The words hit harder than Tai Yang expected. He wanted to argue, to defend himself, but doubt crept in. What if Dal was right? What if the resurrection had changed his mind as well as his body? How would he even know? Before he could answer, the door burst open. Commander Yijun strode in, ignoring the Itharian guards who tried to stop him. Tai Yang, we're leaving, now. Commander. Tai Yang stood, military instinct kicking in. What's happening? Multiple human extremist groups are planning something. We've intercepted communications suggesting an attack on the Itharian royal family. At the same time, our intelligence indicates Itharian extremists are planning to hit our diplomatic corps. Each side wants to frame the other, restart the war. Yijun looked at Princess Lyra. You're all in danger. We need to evacuate key personnel immediately. Queen Velnara appeared in the doorway, moving with surprising speed for someone who looked so ancient. How reliable is this intelligence? Reliable enough that I'm risking an interstellar incident by barging into your palace. Yijun's expression was grim. The attacks are planned for the peace summit at Threshold Station in 3 days. Both our peoples will be there, along with representatives from half a dozen neutral species. If the extremists succeed, we'll have a war that makes the previous conflicts look like practice. The Queen's eyes narrowed. Then we stop them. My thoughts exactly, Yijun said. But I need help. I need people both sides might trust. He looked at Tai Yang. I need you. You're the only person who's literally died for peace between our species. If anyone can help stop this, it's you. Tai Yang felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He could refuse, could take the safe path and let others handle the crisis. But he'd never been good at taking the safe path. That's how he'd ended up dead in the first place. I'll help, he said. What do you need me to do? Over the next 2 days, Tai Yang found himself at the center of a joint operation between human and Itharian intelligence services. The two groups didn't trust each other, but they trusted him even less. To the humans, he was compromised by alien technology. To the Itharians, he was an outsider given access to royal secrets. Only Commander Yijun and Princess Lyra seemed to accept him without reservation. Lyra worked beside him, using her access to Itharian intelligence networks to track down extremists in her own species. Tai Yang watched her work with a mixture of admiration and something else, something deeper that he didn't want to examine too closely. The bond between them, created by his death and resurrection, had grown stronger. He could feel her determination, her fear for her people, her guilt that extremists would use her near death as an excuse for violence. It's not your fault, he told her during a brief break. They stood on a balcony overlooking the Crystal City, watching ships come and go from the spaceport. Isn't it? Lyra's hands gripped the railing. If I hadn't insisted on attending the ceremony, you wouldn't have died. This connection between us wouldn't exist. You'd still be fully human, fully yourself. I am myself. Tai Yang said it with more confidence than he felt. I'm just more now. Different, but still me. Are you sure? How can you be certain the resurrection didn't change who you are at a fundamental level? It was the same question that kept him awake at night. Tai Yang didn't have a good answer. I guess I can't be certain. But I have to trust that the core of who I am survived, that my choices are still my own. Lyra turned to face him, and in the light of Ithara's setting sun, her alien features looked almost familiar. I'm glad you survived. Whatever you've become, I'm glad you're here. Before Tai Yang could respond, Commander Yijun appeared. We've got confirmation. Both attacks are definitely happening at the summit. The extremists have managed to smuggle weapons and explosives onto Threshold Station. Security there is compromised on both sides. We're going in with a small team to stop them. Then let's go, Tai Yang said. Let's finish this. But as they prepared to leave for Threshold Station, Tai Yang couldn't shake the feeling that this was bigger than just stopping terrorists. This was about proving something to himself and everyone else. That resurrection hadn't made him less human. That dying for peace and being brought back didn't make him a monster or a tool. It made him something new, something that neither species had seen before. He just hoped that would be enough. Threshold Station hung in the void between human and Itharian space. A massive structure built as neutral ground for both species. Its corridors were designed to accommodate both human and alien physiology, with adjustable gravity, atmosphere, and lighting. Under normal circumstances, it was a symbol of cooperation. Today, it was about to become a battlefield. Taeyang moved through the station service corridors with Princess Lyra beside him and Commander Yi-jun leading their small team. They'd split into multiple groups, each targeting a different location where the attacks were planned. The human extremists intended to bomb the main conference hall during the opening ceremonies. The Itharian extremists planned to release a biological agent in the human quarters. Both groups believed they were striking first to prevent the other side's attack. Both groups were wrong, but that wouldn't matter if they succeeded. 2 minutes to the conference hall, Yi-jun said quietly into his comm. Other teams and status? The responses came back one by one. The team sent to stop the biological attack reported they were in position. The security team working to evacuate civilians confirmed the routes were clear. Everything was ready. Everything depended on the next few minutes. They emerged into a maintenance area overlooking the conference hall. Below, hundreds of beings from both species mingled, waiting for the summit to begin. Diplomats, scientists, business leaders all gathered to discuss the future. None of them knew that future was seconds away from being destroyed. There, Lyra pointed to a service panel near the main stage. That's where our intelligence said they'd plant the device. Taeyang could see movement near the panel. 3 humans in maintenance uniforms working quickly. From their body language, they were nervous, rushing. Amateurs, he thought, but amateurs with a bomb were still deadly. Yi-jun activated his comm. All teams were moving in. Quiet takedown, no shots fired if possible. We don't want to start a panic. They descended quickly, using access ladders that put them behind the extremists. Taeyang reached the first one, a young man who barely looked old enough to serve in the military. The extremist turned, saw Taeyang, and his eyes went wide with recognition. You, the young man breathed. You're him, the one they brought back. Don't do this, Taeyang said quietly. Whatever you think you're accomplishing, you're wrong. This won't bring peace. It'll only bring more death. That's the point. The extremist's hand moved toward something on his belt. We don't want peace with aliens. We want them gone. And if you're helping them, you're a traitor. Taeyang moved faster than he thought possible, his enhanced reflexes taking over. He caught the extremist's wrist before the man could activate whatever device he'd been reaching for. The young man tried to fight back, but Taeyang was stronger now, fast enough to disable him without causing serious injury. The other 2 extremists realized what was happening and ran. Yi-jun took down one with a tackle that would have made a professional athlete proud. The third made it 5 steps before Princess Lyra intercepted him, using Itharian combat techniques that left the man unconscious on the floor. Device secured, Yi-jun reported into his comm. Conference hall is safe. Other teams? Biological attack prevented, came the response. 3 Itharian extremists in custody. No casualties. Taeyang felt relief wash over him, but it was premature. An alarm blared through the station, and a new voice came over Yi-jun's comm. It was one of the security officers they'd been coordinating with. We've got a problem. There's a 3rd attack we didn't know about. Someone sabotaged the station's structural supports in Section 7. The whole section is going to collapse and there are people trapped inside. Both human and Itharian civilians, Yi-jun swore. How long? 5 minutes. Maybe less. The support beams are already failing. Can we evacuate? Lyra asked. Not enough time. The exits are on the wrong side of the collapse zone. Taeyang was already running before he consciously decided to move. Section 7 was 3 levels down and half a station away. He pushed his enhanced body as hard as it would go, aware of Lyra and Yi-jun struggling to keep up behind him. The station shook around them, metal groaning as structural supports failed one by one. They reached Section 7 to find chaos. The corridor had buckled, trapping a group of civilians behind a collapsed bulkhead. Through the gaps in the wreckage, Taeyang could see them. Humans and Itharians together, some injured, all terrified. Among them was Prince Nox, Lyra's older brother. The prince who had publicly called Taeyang an abomination, who had argued against his resurrection, who represented everything conservative and traditional in Itharian society. He was trying to help an injured human woman, supporting her weight as she struggled to breathe. We need cutting equipment, Yi-jun said, assessing the situation. Something to get through the debris. There's no time, Lyra said, her voice breaking. The next support beam is going to fail any second. When it does, this entire section collapses into vacuum. Taeyang looked at the wreckage, at the people trapped behind it, at the failing support beam above them. He'd seen structural collapses before. He knew exactly what would happen. The beam would fall, the bulkhead would give way, and everyone in Section 7 would die, unless someone held the beam up long enough for them to escape. "Get them out," Tae-Yang said calmly. "When I lift the beam, you get them all out." "Lift it?" Yi-Jun stared at him. "Tae-Yang, that beam weighs tons. Even with whatever enhancements you have, you can't—" "I can hold it long enough." Tae-Yang moved to the beam, placing his hands against the failing support. He could feel it buckling, feel the enormous weight pressing down. "Get them out." "That's an order, Commander." He didn't wait for a response. He pushed upward with everything he had, and the beam moved. Just inches, but it was enough. The collapsed bulkhead shifted, creating a gap large enough for people to squeeze through. "Go!" Lyra shouted, and the evacuation began. Humans and Itharians poured through the gap, supporting each other, helping the injured. Prince Nox came through last, still supporting the human woman. He stopped when he saw Tae-Yang, saw what he was doing. "You're holding the entire section," Nox said, something like awe in his voice. "You'll die if you let go." "Probably," Tae-Yang agreed through gritted teeth. The weight was incredible, crushing. He could feel his bones creaking, his muscles tearing, his enhanced body being pushed beyond its limits. "So go. Make my second death count for something." Nox hesitated for one more moment, then moved through the gap, carrying the injured woman with him. "Tae-Yang, let go!" Lyra was screaming at him now, reaching back through the gap. "You've done enough. Let it fall." But there were still people moving through the corridor behind him. Station personnel running for the exits. If he let go now, they'd be crushed. So he held on, counting seconds, counting heartbeats, counting the lives running past him toward safety. His vision started to narrow, darkness creeping in at the edges. This was familiar. He'd felt this before on Valna 7, dying in an explosion. Funny how he'd gotten a second chance at life only to die the same way, sacrificing himself for others. But then hands grabbed him. Multiple hands, both human and Itharian. Commander Yi-Jun on one side, Prince Nox on the other. Dozens of others forming a chain, pulling him back toward the gap. "Not this time," Yi-Jun growled. "You don't get to die again." They pulled him through the gap just as the support beam failed completely. The section collapsed behind them with a sound like the end of the world. But they were all on the safe side, alive, together. Tae-Yang lay on the corridor floor, his body screaming in pain but already beginning to heal. He looked up to find both humans and Itharians standing over him, looking at him with expressions he couldn't quite read. Prince Nox knelt beside him. "I was wrong about you. You're not an abomination. You're not even just human anymore. You're something new, something both species need." "I'm just tired," Tae-Yang said honestly. "Tired of dying. Tired of almost dying. Can we maybe find a way to peace that doesn't involve me getting crushed?" The crowd laughed, a sound that mixed human and Itharian voices into something harmonious. 3 weeks later, the summit concluded with unprecedented agreements between the species. But the biggest announcement came from Queen Velnara herself, delivered with Princess Lyra and Tae-Yang standing beside her. "We propose the creation of a new order," the Queen said. "Volunteers from both species who will undergo the same resurrection technology used to restore Tae-Yang. Not to create soldiers, but to create bridges, living symbols of what our species can become together." There was debate, of course, arguments and concerns and fears, but in the end, volunteers stepped forward, humans and Itharians alike, willing to be transformed into something new. Tae-Yang became the first captain of this new order, training others in what it meant to exist between species. Dr. Hana returned to Earth but stayed in constant contact, proud of her brother's evolution. Commander Yi-Jun remained as military liaison, ensuring the new order served peace, not politics. And Princess Lyra stayed beside him through it all, their bond deepening into something neither species had words for. Not quite romance, not quite friendship, but something entirely new. On the observation deck of Threshold Station, Tae-Yang stood looking out at the stars. Behind him, a new class of volunteers prepared for their transformation. Ahead of him, an uncertain future stretched between two civilizations learning to coexist. He died for a princess he barely knew. A queen had refused to let that sacrifice be meaningless, and now he lived to ensure no one else had to die for peace to survive. It wasn't the life he'd planned. But looking out at those stars, feeling the presence of both human and Itharian minds around him, connected by bonds that transcended species, Tai Yang thought it might be the life he was always meant to have. Some things were worth dying for, but some things he'd learned were worth living for too.